So the Border Management Authority and the South African Revenue Service are currently hosting the Bilateral Steering Committee meeting with Mozambique to address challenges faced in the country's border environment. That briefing is underway. Let's listen in.
In this context, we might be talking here about the Maputo corridor within the context of N4 into Lebombo and ultimately into Mozambique, but more critically into Maputo Harbour, as it were. And I think on that basis, we can just cast our minds back. We can remember that in this particular corridor, we used to have instances where trucks could effectively be stuck here for some days, if not weeks. And today we are kind of talking in a bit of a different context. We no longer have that kind of a length, as it were, within the context of border management. So on that basis, we can fairly agree that we've been able to see some of the progress in terms of the work that we are actually supposed to be doing. The critical issue is to ensure that we implement all of the issues that we discuss in this particular conversation, particularly the work that is being done by the technical team on the ground. One thing that we can fairly agree, colleagues, is that an environment that we call a border, it is not supposed to be a place of camping. It's not necessarily supposed to be a place of sitting for some weeks. It's actually supposed to be a point of transition in a way, or a point of passage. And that is the ultimate objective that we have in as far as this part is concerned. The issues in terms of the historical collaboration that we have had between ourselves as jurisdictions are fairly much well documented, and that should not necessarily be considered as a critical challenge. We have also seen, colleagues, that Lebombo, port of entry in particular, is becoming one of the critical corridors, particularly in terms of the movement of cargo from the South African side in particular going over into Maputo Harbour, as it were. We have also seen, even in terms of figures, that Lebombo is starting to challenge Bay Bridge, which happens to have been the biggest corridor into the continent in terms of the numbers of the trucks that we may facilitate through this particular port. I think you will fairly be aware that we are looking at an average of 500 to 2,000 trucks on a day that are fairly facilitated in this particular environment. So on this particular base, colleagues, as we are to start this review of the joint action plan that we have signed between ourselves, and ultimately be able to also receive the report that has been put together by a private enterprise, MASC, that has been contracted by the World Bank in assisting us to be able to achieve certain critical milestones, particularly in the context of bringing efficiencies into the environment. There are certain things that we want to achieve, and I want to itemize them. The first part is the issue of the realization of what in other advanced jurisdictions will describe as a smart border blueprint. I suppose that is one thing that we need to achieve, and that is one thing that we need to realize. In this day and age, we can all agree that technology has been one of the most fundamental things that needs to be explored very seriously on the basis of modernizing our port environment. We are not in the 50s, colleagues, where we are expecting that we have to push in papers almost the entire day with a lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks that we actually create ourselves and ultimately end up bottlenecking the growth of our economies. We should be able to agree that we must be able to exploit the available technologies that are actually out there and be able to achieve smart border blueprint. And I suppose the report that we are going to receive today is going to assist us in as far as that part is concerned. The second issue, colleagues, is around the content of the work that has been done in the past few months within the context of the implementation of our joint action plan. That becomes very much critical because we still are very much committed to those particular items that has been actually agreed between ourselves around the joint action plan, and we must be able to say this is what we have achieved to this point, and these are the issues that we are going to be implementing in the next few days, and that becomes very, very much fundamental. The other issue that I want to reflect on, colleagues, is the fact that For us to be able to fully advance the achievement of smart movement, as well as the ultimate free flow of freight in particular, we should be able to commit into some bit of adjusting of the infrastructure on the table, so that we are able to move in as far as the redesigning and redeveloping of our ports is concerned. And on that particular context, we can indicate that on the South African side, we are a bit at advanced stage, as it were, in as far as this particular item is concerned, to the extent that very soon we are going to be announcing our private partner that is going to assist us in the redesigning of Lebombo in this instance, and make sure that it is opened up so that we are able to have dedicated lanes that we need to be able to use for the purposes of the movement of freight. The ultimate objective, as the Director Theron will indicate here, is the achievement of a non-stop border post concept, particularly when it comes to the movement of cargo in particular. And that is something that we must be able to commit to and be able to achieve. If we keep on working together, we should be able to achieve that reality. And of course, within the context of the joint...
All right, you're listening there to Dr. Michael Masiapato, the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority. The BMA and SARS are hosting a bilateral steering committee with Mozambique to address a number of challenges at the country's borders. And essentially, this committee was put together to deliver on a number of interventions to essentially enhance operations along the border. It's a story, of course, that we'll continue watching for you throughout the course of the day.